Hey, folks, this is Rebel Rousing Rich Bergeron.
Ladies and gentlemen, tornadoes anyway. And I can contact it with it. First, they me a blue and gold case of tornadoes. I had the shorts and the shades and all that. So when I was going to start boxing, I'm like, I need a good thing name. Something's going to stick. Someone goes, dude, go back to the tornado. I'm like, yo, struck gold. And so years later, obviously you guys know it's my outfit says tornado. My Eagle jersey says tornado. My car has a decal of a tornado on it. So my three favorite tornado stories. One when I was a kid, as Rich you were saying about your sister wanting to be a storm chaser, and then was saying like, I don't want to be a storm chaser anymore when you know how it was. Um, when I was a kid, one day it was beautiful, gorgeous, not a cloud in the sky, channels. And for whatever reason, I ended up on the Weather Channel. The Weather Channel encompasses the entire United States. Apparently, somewhere in the Midwest, they were having inclement weather and tornado weather. I heard it and I thought it meant. Now, granted, is a cloudless blue day. I'm running down into the Bayfront. And so, what are you doing? Like, there's tornado warning. I'm like, yeah, for like Missouri. 6 years later, first started doing facility. Got it into, but I'd already gone through training at you for leg and woman making it. So I didn't get to wear the clear winter until 2013. Even before my trip, I'm checking in every day with the OCD. And every day the weather is getting worse. It's going to be 50% chance of rain. Wonderful. 70% chance of rain. Great. 80% chance of storms. Great. Severe storms. Possible damage. Jesus, what? Get down, and I land on a Saturday. I'm going to the Sunday game, and a lot of clouds. Beautiful game. Didn't know there were actual tornado warnings that day. Didn't know that people that were already at the ballpark got shuttled on the ground. So that night, Phillies win on a home run, and my friend sends me the clip of the news. There were tornado warnings in Clearwater, and all we got was this guy here. His name is Tornado.
I remember. I remember that.
And you might not want to be on the roads. And where my gym was, about a mile away, a tornado hit the actual roads we'd been on at the time I hit it.
Jeez.
It would have been the most epic. It would have been the most epic way for me to go. But so the last year, I get out of Clearwater, go to Hulk Hogan's shop, buy my nephews their annual Hulk Hogan shirts. One nephew was only a year old. My other nephew, Dominic, was 6. Got their Hogan shirts. And I call my friend Mike. I text his wife because I can't plan anything with Mike. I plan everything with his wife because she keeps the schedule. I said, hey, next Saturday, meet at your house, bring some food, bring the shirts. We'll all get the two kids together and we'll hang out. So apparently Natalie says my nephew Dominic, next Saturday we're going to have a tornado here. My God. And he's actually like, she's just Uncle Tony said, oh, thank God. At 3 in the morning, I'll make it real hungover. Like, I drank so much on Saturday night, my hangover hit me until midnight, like 3 a.m., 20 minutes later. And I'm laying there. And I'm like, oh God, I wish I was dead right now. The phone's blowing up. What is that? It's tornado warning. Fuck it, let it just. I'd rather right now. I feel so bad. Let it keep.
Well then, we got a lot of stuff to cover tonight, but we didn't have any MMA last week. Had a lot of boxing. And of course, that meant that I made some bets on boxing, and boy, it was a bad week for me trying to bet on boxing. First off, I tried a couple different bets. One of them was a knockout for Shakur Stevenson and a win for Robson Conceição, and also I had O'Shaquie Foster and just a regular Shakur Stevenson win. So, of course, none of those worked out because Conceição did get the upset by split decision, which Foster's team was screaming robbery, acted like it wasn't even touched. Conceição was banged up quite a bit, but they gave him the win. And then Shakur Stevenson failed to get the knockout, so of course he just cruised to a unanimous decision win. And then my other third one that I tried was Daniel Jacobs beating Shane Mosley Jr., and that didn't happen.
Yeah.
He looked like absolute crap.
In survival mode, he was too smart to knock out, and Mosley Jr., I don't think, helped himself a lot. He got the win, but, not exactly a barn burner.
No. Yeah, so Shane Mosley cruised in his fight. Jacobs just looks like, an absolute shell of himself, and Mosley got criticized because it was boring, but I mean, he was being tactical. He was trying to stay at range, and he did a pretty good job. We also had Nate Diaz in the main event of that one, taking home the unanimous decision win. Um, and I actually had Jorge Masvidal, so it was just an all-out bad betting week for me. Oh, was it a split? Yeah, it was a split. You're right. Well, one of them was a draw. One of them.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Way up.
Diaz actually showed the good volume. That was probably the best part of it, and he was showboating a lot, but he took the harder hits. So, I guess that if you looked at the draw, it was kind of accurate if you favored those harder hits over the volume. But I mean, everybody knew that was going to be the case because, the Stockton slap that he's famous for, just duplicated that a million times and he kept busy. And that was the key to his victory. So those were the big fights over the weekend. Nothing really jumps out other than those for boxing. We do have.
And you have other guys say, you want to retire because of your health or whatever. With a guy like Danny Jacobs, the fact that he literally walked off his deathbed and not only became a world champion again, but he had the premier fight, of his career against Canelo Alvarez. So, the fact that this is a man that was given his last rites. Everything he's accomplished since that, you take your hat off to that man, and you tip your hat. You just, what else can you say? I mean, he became a world champion. He went out there, fought Canelo in Vegas, pinnacle of his career. You got to give it all the respect in the world.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, he obviously had some ring rust too. I think he hadn't fought in 2 years, and Mosley is the younger, fresher fighter, so it was one of those types of things where he needed a big name to put on his record, and Jacobs just wasn't up to the task, and age and time off just caught up with him. I mean, that's a pretty good excuse. So, I mean, I'd like to see him get a win before he retires and get an easier to just notch that last win. But it happens. But we've got some fights coming up this weekend. One in Atlanta here tomorrow night. Saul Sanchez, 20-3 against Arthur Villanueva. No television there, but it's Sanchez 20-3 coming in to the fight. And it's a bantamweight fight. Villanueva is 35-5-1. And we do have some titles on the line and television involved on Saturday in Vegas. Zanabek Alum Kanuli. Probably butchering that one, but I'm going to butcher the next guy's name too. He's coming in at 15-0, fighting 21-0 Andre Mikhailovich. That one's a little bit easier. He's 21-0 at middleweight, and that's for two titles: IBF World Middleweight and WBO World Middleweight. So that's probably somebody's always got to go fight of the week. And we got another undefeated fighter fighting more of a journeyman here. Raymond Moratala, 20-0 at lightweight, fighting Tevin Farmer, who is 33-5-1. And then number 9 in the world at featherweight, 22-1. Ruben Villa, fighting Suleiman Segawa, who is 16-4-1. And then if that ain't enough, we got Leonardo Padilla, who is 23-5-1 at super featherweight, fighting Jonathan Lopez, who's also undefeated, 15-0. And then we go to the zone for another fight.
Well, I want to talk to him back
Sure.
January 2020, where even all COVID crashed everything down. And he was gone for almost 3.5 years. Came back June of last year, beat Avery Sparrow, who was a fringe contender out of Philly. Had a stoppage win over Barajas, who was 7-8-1, and then another stoppage win over another journeyman fighter. So now Farmer's getting his group back. I remember Kevin Farmer. In fact, Tom and I saw him together in Valley Forge like 10 years ago. And Kevin Farmer, for a while, like early in his career, I would even say he was more flash than substance. He'd come out there and he'd wear like the outfits. He'd come to the ring wearing shades, and I would say he would wear the shades because he didn't want to get be blinded to the reflection of his own outfit. And I'm like, see him a couple months later, and I'm like, and more with him, I'm like, how you want to? I'm like, you started cranky. And then he ended up becoming the world champion. Beat Billy Dibb in Australia, which is saying something. Defended his title 4 times, and not much of a puncher. So he really had to point everything. Then in college, 16 knockouts. So obviously he's the A side of this fight.
Right.
But you're talking to a guy here that, as Tom would say, not a deep date, highly skilled, southpaw, can really make you look bad. So that's an interesting fight.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got 5 losses, but he's got more experience for sure. 33 wins. You can't knock that. He's been in with some tough guys.
One of those losses were in the first 7 fights of his career.
Oh, see? That's why we have the boxing ring man here.
Yeah. Well, he's coming up on a box rec right now, too. So he lost his first fight to TKO, 1-2, lost draw. And these are all going back to 2011, 2012. Tom and I saw him in 2013. Like I said, I saw him in one fight, and I'm like, he won, but I'm like, I wasn't impressed. Or the next fight, we saw him against Victor Vasquez, Puerto Rican kid. He blew Vasquez. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I was wrong. And then he went on a winning streak. He won the world title, and then we eventually held for a couple fights before he lost it to Jojo Diaz. And that's no shame, because that was a guy that was 30-1 coming in.
Right. And the next fight card we have is in Philadelphia at the Wells Fargo Center on Saturday. Ziron Ennis. He is
Really have things about ideas. I was like, you know what I might try to do? Because the Philly Stadium is right across the street from the Wells. Phillies are playing at 4 o'clock Thursday night. I could try to get to the Phillies by noon, get on the field at 2, get my photos, stay for 4 or 5 innings, go. Usually I don't drive down there, but this time I have to go to my car, change, get out of my outfit, and then go to the field. I know my dad could never do that in one day. Not right now. So I'm trying to talk to some friends, and I'm like, hey, I want to go. And they're like, no, I can't this weekend, guys. So I'm like, now I'm trying to think of options. Still not out of the question, though.
All right.
Am I going to do both events?
If you do go, we have Jaron Ennis coming in undefeated, 31-0. Everybody knows him as Boots, and he's going to put his boots on to fight David Avanasian, who is 30-4 with 1 draw, and it's for the IBF World Welterweight title. And the co-main event is a female fight. Featherweight, Sky Nicholson, 10-0, number 3 in the world, against Diana Vargas, who is 19-1. And that one's for the WBC World Featherweight title for females fighters.
You know what? Here's something ironic. I'm looking at Boots' record right now. And, you're looking at a guy right now that's 31-0, 28 knockouts. I've seen some really skilled fighters that he has fought. He fought a guy named Raymond Serrano a few years ago, and Raymond Serrano was fought that in Philly. Boots blew him out in 2 rounds, but he was a punching bag. And then he fought Sergey Lipinets, good fighter, blew him out of the water. Tomas Delarm, good fighter, fought Terrence Crawford, blew him out of the water. So then, out of his last so many fights, been knocking everybody out. The person that went the distance with him is somebody named Karen.
Karen Chikadian?
Yeah, Karen went the distance. So, you got a fighter like Boots, and, right now, people can only see what they've seen on TV. He's been on Showtime a couple times. He's been on DAZN. People can say what they've seen. There's been talk of him eventually fighting Terrence, which was bad. On a website the other day, I'm really ripped Boots apart. Right now, even the guy I mentioned, Raymond Serrano, was 24. Rondo Alvarez, 18-0. Iron was a world title challenger and blew him out of the water. So he's not fought all Tomaticans. He's just made them look like Tomaticans. When you watch a guy like him, what you really see is high boxing IQ. I mean, he's got natural speed. He's got good punching power. There's just certain things like the speed you can't really keep. Power you can't really keep. Thing IQ, that's also a natural gift. You can it's like a chess player that can see the board. Moves ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And he can be somewhere, 3 steps before you're there, and when you get there, you're getting hit. He switches up between orthodox and south. Just think him and Paul would be a tremendous fight because that would be such a high IQ fight, high skill level fight. They could switch it up. It was like Crawford would switch up to south and be back conventional while Boots was in the middle of it. Like, one will pivot this way, one will pivot that way. It would be an amazing chess. Really skilled and I think are very entertaining.
Right.
This fight, I'm going to look at David Avanasian. I can't really say that I know him. He is a suit. The original opponent dropped out. He lost to Terrence Crawford a year and a half ago. Lost by KO. He is 34-1, which means 30 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw. I want to say he was 34-1. He's 34-1. He's got 18 knockouts, so it doesn't look like he's a big puncher. He's got 2 defeats by stoppage. One's Terrence Crawford. That's obviously no, shame in that. He has another loss to somebody whose name I can never even attempt to pronounce. Jaidias Kavalauskas. He was 18-0. Yeah. He has a win over Shane Mosley. The Shane Mosley?
Yeah. Well, Shane Mosley's coming up on a fight, by the way.
Looks like it was Shane Mosley's last fight. Decision.
Yeah, he's going to be fighting somebody in an exhibition, I think.
Yeah, one of those, he's going to be in one of those celebrity boxing matches. Damon.
Yep. Yeah, speaking of celebrity boxing, that reminds me of a story I shared with you guys about the new Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback taking up boxing lessons.
Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson, yeah. Apparently, he's doing pretty good. He's working with Freddie Roach, of all people. And it's, he's taking this new chance pretty seriously. I mean, he did all right for the Broncos, but obviously did not mesh well with the head coach over there, Sean Payton. And so now he's taking his conditioning to a new level and doing the boxing. And I was joking with you guys, but half serious. If he really sucks at being a quarterback, he might be a ringer on the celebrity boxing circuit. But famously, Teddy Atlas has been working with a lot of NFL teams, and he started out with the Jets. I remember we talked about it on the show, it must have been like 7 or 8 years ago when he first started doing it, and it made the news. And I think that there'd be a lot more football players who'd want to do mixed martial arts training because of a lot of the wrestling moves and you probably wouldn't want to see him choke anybody out on the field. But, some of the takedowns for guys that need to tackle. But boxing has been kind of more popular for the football players. And who knows whether this is going to translate to excellence on the football field or not for Russell Wilson. But he looks like he's taken a liking to it, and it's probably going to be one of those things. We had actually a couple NFL players who talked about. I want to say last year there was. A couple on the Triller circuit or whatever Jake Paul's undercards. There was that running back Bell from the Kansas City Chiefs. Le'Veon Bell, he was one of them.
Well, I think was he like?
I think he's back now, but he was off for a year. And Le'Veon Bell, I think he was in a boxing match last year. Yeah, there's been a few of them, and they haven't always done spectacular, but you think we always talk about how the best UFC fighters probably went to the NFL instead of going that route. And then we had Gable Stevenson there. He actually went to the Buffalo Bills, and then he actually picked. He was going to be under the TKO umbrella. He picked wrestling over MMA, professional wrestling. He come from Greco-Roman, and did pretty well with his college career, and then he ended up saying "screw you" to the WWE, and he went to the Buffalo Bills without having any football experience. I thought that was very weird. But I don't know if we're actually going to see him on the field or if he's just going to spend his life as a practice team player. I haven't heard anything new on that, but I did remember when he signed with them. So, yeah, it's good to know. I mean, no matter what sport you're in, it's definitely good to know. And it's, as anybody could tell you who has boxed, it's a heck of a workout. You get in shape fast training boxing. Anyway,
That is the truth.
another funny story here from the world of MMA. Chael Sonnen got hacked, and he's put. I guess the hacker put out a bunch of bad comments about Dana White, Conor McGregor, and some other fighters on Twitter. He claimed that they Dana White pumped millions into Israel Adesanya to turn him into the new UFC Golden Boy. And I remember us talking about that, how much they were promoting guys like that. Um, but anyway, Chael turned around and said he'd been hacked, and none of it was him. One of the things that made it onto Facebook that I saw was a list of the female fighters that Dana White had sex with. And I knew that was fake because some of the people on the list, like, never could I even see them involved at all with Dana White. But I know there was rumors about Ronda Rousey. That was not a surprise. But the Happy Warrior was the funniest one. Um, I can't think of her name right now, but I'll get it in a second. But yeah, she was on the list. Paige Van Zant was on the list. But I saw the Happy Warrior in person, and I shook her hand one time. Roxanne Modafferi. She's definitely not the type to go sleep with the boss. She's kind of a nerd. She has the softest handshake you ever shake anybody's hand, and nobody's softer a handshake than she had. I saw her on the night she got slam knocked out. She got hit. She Her opponent picked her up and slammed her onto the mat, and she got knocked out. So she lost the fight, but she started doing a little bit better towards the end of her career. Actually, she was getting some big fights, and but anyway, that was just ridiculous. The list was crazy. The other person, probably the biggest high-profile person that Dana White was rumored to have sex with when I was doing the science story was Mandy Moore, which was kind of funny because the movie, not movie, the series Entourage. You know, Mandy Moore was all over that, and the main star was supposedly having an affair with her. So it was kind of funny. It all kind of happened around the same time. Yeah, I never heard any confirmation of that, but yeah, that's supposedly one of Dana White's conquests, and we know that he's got some issues with his wife after the slapping incident. But and then there was the guy that was bribing him that ended up suing to try to get his money. It was ridiculous. But yeah, Dana White was kind of being blackmailed because the guy ended up putting his wife up to sleeping with him, and they got it on tape and everything like that. Guy ended up extorting him, getting arrested, and yeah, it was a whole big story. But yeah, Dana White has been rumored to be, a big time playboy outside of marriage there. No surprise there. But yeah, they've known each other since they were kids, like 11 years old, the wife and him. So that's going around. I don't know if anything that the hacker put out was actually true or not, but that was part of it. And we got a UFC fight coming up, fight card in Denver, Colorado. A lot of talk about the altitude, and I spent a little time in Denver when I was out at the Air Force Academy, and I thought it was not as bad as the academy itself. The academy itself is kind of in the mountains, and it's weird because you drive down out of the academy and everywhere you look, it's like big open plains and fields, and then the mountains off in the distance. But we got to go to Denver one time. I was always on some sort of probation, usually conduct probation. I was screwing around a little bit too much, or academic probation because I wasn't passing calculus. But they would have football games where they'd give you amnesty for the weekend. So we ended up borrowing a car and going to Denver for the weekend. And I did not have any trouble breathing, but that could have been because I was drinking so much. For one weekend off. So anyway, this card is at the Ball Arena, and the main event is a female fight: Rose Namajunas versus Tracy Cortez. Tracy Cortez has an 11-1 record, but nowhere near the competition level that Rose Namajunas has faced. So I'm gonna definitely be betting on Namajunas. Don't know if she's got knockout ability in this one, but I hear that her submission, the submission option for Rose Namajunas is like plus 800 or something for odds, so might throw some money at that. It's a long, crazy bet. She's not really known for her submissions. That's probably why. And then we have a co-main event at welterweight: Santiago Ponzinibbio against Muslim Salikov. Ponzinibbio looking for win number 30. He's 29-7, and Salikov 19-5. Haven't really done the research on those guys. This next fight,
Santiago, really,
yeah,
you know, he
I don't know. I'm very unprepared for this. It's been so long since I've been MMA. I've been studying more baseball than I have been MMA lately. Anyway, so Santiago Ponzinibbio, he's got the experience. Muslim Salikov has a little less fights, but he's got a milestone too. If he gets a win, he'll get win number 20. So both guys got a lot to fight for in that one. I have watched some of the preview shows, so I know what some of the experts out there are picking. Drew Dober versus John Silva. A lot of people like Silva to get the knockout if he can do it early. If not, Drew Dober. A couple people have said that he could win with his grappling. He's 27-13. Silva 13-2, and he is pretty good knockout artist. So. Then we have Gabriel Bonfim against Ange Alusa at welterweight, and Bonfim is a guy who might have problems gassing out, whereas Lusa quit basically in his last fight after an eye poke. And one of the commentators that did the preview picks was kind of making cracks about that, saying that the MMA gods saved him because he had bet on Jay on that fight. And he was getting his ass kicked by Brian Battle before the eye poke happened. Bonfim is not, I don't think, as naturally talented as Battle. Battle's a little bit new to the UFC, but he's just been tremendously, you know, just mowing through a lot of people. So he's made a good impression. Bonfim could gas out, could give Lusa a chance, but he is the favorite. He's one of the top favorites on the card. And then we got C-Rod, Christian Rodriguez. He is 11-1 at featherweight, fighting journeyman Julian Arosa, and that's another guy who needs win number 30. And this is one that's been creating a little bit of debate. A lot of guys like Rodriguez, he is a favorite, but Arosa is one of those good live dogs. He surprises people a lot, but he also, has a win, has a loss, has a win, has a loss. He's one of those up and down guys. You can never predict accurately who's going to show up. So he's one of those guys you might want to hedge your bet with. Put one on Rodriguez, put one on Arosa, because that's one of those types of fights. And then we have Abdul Razak Al Hassan against Cody Brundage, and this is right in the middle of the fight card. And it's a good one. Al Hassan actually has all 12 of his wins by knockout, so I might want to go alternate decision on this one. Cody Brundage by decision or Abdul by knockout. He's 12-6. Brundage is 10-6. So very evenly matched on paper. Brundage is kind of more of the wrestler type. So I would think if he wins, it'll be decision. And then we got Joshua Van coming in at 10-1 against Charles Johnson, who is 15-6. And both of these guys have an ironic statistic. They have lost the majority. Van has lost every first round he's ever fought. I think that's just in the UFC, but these experts were talking about that today. Charles Johnson, I think he's got like a 90% rate of losing the first round as well. So neither guy is known for having a good first round. There's a plus, there's a over 1.5 rounds, you might want to go for that. That bet on this one, not sure what it is. It was 1.5 or 2.5. It's usually the rounds, over rounds or under rounds. But anyway, the most convincing video I saw where they were trying to predict this, they said Joshua Van by split decision, which is pretty pretty specific. Usually you just have to do decision or knockout or submission. But this guy said split decision. I don't even know if you can bet on that specific type of outcome. But I think a better bet on this one. These guys are both pretty durable. Would be to go the distance, which might be lower odds, less payoff, but more of a surety on that one. I think both of these guys are capable of going the distance. And then we got Jasmine Jasudavicius, 10-3 against Fatima Klein. And Klein is the youth, Jasudavicius, whatever. Jasudavicius. She is the experienced, older fighter here. I've seen people pick both ways here, but I also heard from one of the commentators that puts the videos together previewing these fights. He said that Jasmine has been in Colorado. They've been there like a couple weeks now, and she's getting acclimated to the altitude. And Klein just does not have the UFC experience, so I think that's another to go the distance fight. Almost every female fight I've noticed goes the distance at least on the preliminaries. Sometimes when you get to the main events, you've got fighters with a lot more knockout or submission ability. But yeah, almost all the prelim fights that are female fights go the distance. So I like Juicy the Vicious by decision, but you could also go to go the distance on that one. And then we got another one that looks really good on paper: Montel Jackson versus Damon Blackshear. I've seen experts pick this both ways. One of them said Montel Jackson by knockout. He does have only 2 losses, whereas Blackshear's got 6. But Blackshear's looked pretty good lately, so that might be one you just stay away from, or go with your gut. And then Luana Santos 7-1 against Maria Agapova 10-4, and this is one that's both girls have had some issues, but Agapova actually has been kicked out of camps. I mean, it's interesting sometimes when you get the inside story on these fighters. She's stolen people's boyfriends. It's just a lot of drama. And so anyway, she's very troubled. She's actually been like couch surfing too, I heard. She's almost like, in a homeless situation. Doesn't have a real place to stay all the time. So that's got to be distracting, to say the least. And Santos just has the 1 loss. She's actually kind of got a record for submission. So I like Santos by submission. I think that's another good pick there. And then Josh Fremd versus Andre Petrosky. Fremd is 11-5, Petrosky 10-3. That to me is an easy pick. Petrosky all the way at middleweight. And then I don't know if he's older, but his name is Evan Elder. He's 8-2, fighting Darius Flowers, who was 12-7-1 in the first fight of the night at the welterweights. And I don't have a pick on that one. I'm gonna have to really dive into that and see who's got what on the other guy. And there's been some movement on the Conor McGregor versus Chandler fight. Chandler thinks that he might be able to retire Conor without even throwing a punch. He said that recently, and it looks like he is going to try to get a fight with Makachev, of all people, who has been struggling with his sicknesses. Every time he goes into training camp, he gets sick. So, but it's kind of odd for him to go to from Conor McGregor to Makachev. Also, Nate Diaz's brother Nick has a comeback plan in place. He's got a new fight coming up. I'm not sure when. It's not certain, apparently, according to mm, one of his buddies. But it's going to be Vicente Luque if he does return again. And of course, everybody remembers his last fight against who was it? Of course, I can't remember. I just had it in my head. There, yes, last fight. Let's see, Raw or something. Oh, Robbie Lawler. Yeah, that's what it was. Okay. And Lawler actually got knocked out at in the last round. Um, so it was pretty intense. But they were evenly matched. I think Luque, a lot younger guy, he is supposed to fight him on ABC on August 3rd. Um, Vicente Luque's 22, 10 and 1. Nick Diaz 26 and 10. So on paper it sounds good, but Luque is a tough young striker, and Diaz has a little bit of height on him, but that's about it. I don't know. He's also one of those guys known for volume punching rather than power punching, and Luque is a knockout artist. I really don't think it's going to be a good day for Nick Diaz unless he really has turned it around. I don't know. But anyway, so that's on the horizon for August, if it happens. If it doesn't get canceled. And let's see what we got. One, Dustin Poirier in the news here for being open to boxing Nate Diaz. Whereas Diaz has actually talked about getting back to the UFC, but he wants to fight Jake Paul again first. I don't see that happening. Jake has got a lot of stuff going on, and the weight situation for Jake Paul kind of makes that impossible because I don't think that Diaz is going to bulk up to heavyweight. But just don't see that. He's got to get to Mike Perry first. Uh, it's just going to be crazy. I mean, that's talk about unpredictable. That guy, I didn't even know it, but he's actually undefeated in bare knuckle.
Yeah, and the question is, why isn't Nick fighting in bare knuckle?
Oh, well, no. No, it's going to be boxing. Just because, I mean, that's his gimmick. He takes people from an area they're familiar with and brings them into deep water in an area they're not familiar with. So Mike Perry's, I don't think he's ever really had uh,
Yeah,
boxing for him. Yeah, so yeah, that's where he thinks he can beat him. Um, yeah, and he has talked about fighting Diaz there, but I don't think Diaz wants to sign a deal with PFL because he's got such high hopes of getting back to the UFC someday. Oh, yeah. See, that's the thing we used to always talk about on our MMA versus boxing debate uh, shows, where that would be the way to prove like what sport is better or who's better at what sport is if you had two fighters fight in both disciplines. One guy is a boxer, one guy is a traditional MMA fighter, and have them fight both disciplines, within the same year, preferably. And the only guy that's really barely been in conversations for that type of situation is Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury was talking about that a couple of years ago, and of course that went by the wayside, never happened.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and Francis Ngannou, of course, has done the boxing, but he's not really taken anybody or challenged anybody to an MMA fight from boxing. And obviously, you got knocked out by Tyson Fury. Well, not Tyson Fury, but there's a Joshua, Anthony Joshua. So that kind of put a halt to the boxing, sent him back to MMA, where he's got a pretty tough fight coming up. But yeah, I'd be interested to see that, see what he could do against Perry in an MMA fight. But that might be one of those things that never happens because he's making so much with the boxing. And yeah, he's having to deal with PFL. But I would think that um, if he was the same weight, the best guy for him to fight in MMA would be Clay Collard because Clay Collard doesn't punch that hard. He doesn't really have a lot of knockouts in MMA. So I don't know, but I think he might think he'll get beaten or the weight's off, so it won't happen. But yeah, we might never see Jake Paul fight in MMA. He's doing too well with the boxing. And I'm sure they'd be happy to have him as just a spokesman if that's what it is no longer. Or maybe CM Punk will come back. That'd be a great fight for Jake. CM Punk. I think he's very unpopular in the wrestling circuit right now. I don't know if he's working much. So anyway, I think that's about all I had for news and events. Kind of a slow week. Your boy Miocic has been in the news this last week, though. I didn't mean to bring that up. He's waiting for John Jones, apparently, and it's putting a little bit of a wrench in Tom Aspinall's plans because he actually has the interim belt now, but the official belt won't be decided until Miocic uh, fights John Jones, and then I guess Tom Aspinall will fight the winner of that. So it's a lot of limbo situation.
Cormier had a very interesting take on that whole thing. Now, Aspinall, as you know, is fighting Curtis Blades
Yep.
coming up fairly soon, I think next month. And you know what happened the first time? It was a fluke. Aspinall he threw a kick, and you know, but now that he's back, if he runs through Blades, you could imagine the fan demand for him to fight Jones next.
Right.
And so then the question would be, would he get that fight? Because it's kind of what John Jones and Dana White would want, I would think. And right now they're both committed to Stipe, but that could change. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's happened a lot these last few months. Fights changing, opponents changing. We had that last minute fight on the last UFC card, literally put together that day. I don't even remember ever seeing that except when we talked about a couple weeks ago, Seth Petrozelli coming in to knock out Kimbo on a last minute notice when Ken Shamrock cut himself backstage. Emphasis on the himself because there was accusations that he did it on purpose because he wanted more money or something. I don't know. And coming from his pro wrestling background, you can't just put that to rest. pretty crazy. Uh, so Rampage Jackson also in the news talking about a boxing match against Rashad Evans. That would be an epic MMA versus MMA fight. Sorry to get off track, but yeah, I don't think that. I mean, if Stipe has been sitting out this long waiting for John Jones and he's intent on doing that, I don't think that they would switch it up, barring John Jones being retired or having more. lengthy time being out, but it's kind of an interesting perspective because both fighters in this situation have been on the shelf for a little while. One coming back
Yeah.
from an injury, and the other just perfectly healthy, but just wants to wait for his opportunity. Um, so I think the odds kind of tip a little bit in Miocic's favor because of that, the injury and pectoral muscle being torn right off the bone. That's pretty tough to recover from. So and also not training as much. I think Miocic is probably training every single day. Whether he's actually doing full level sparring or not, we don't know. But training is training. So I'd be really intrigued to see that fight. And I don't think they'd put somebody like um uh they'd put somebody like Aspinall in with a guy coming off an injury like that. Um, yeah, it's just a perfect matchup. Both of them have been kind of out of the picture. Bring them both back at the same time. It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of money too, probably. But yeah, I would not throw John Jones in if I'm the UFC and still wants to build him up. I would not put him in with Aspinall right away. You know, makes much more sense to just let that other fight go through. But they've been known to do shit like that, change their minds. And look at what happened with Conor McGregor. He's been waiting forever and, living the high life. And I don't expect him to do well, whoever he comes back against, Conor McGregor. And I think that Chandler might be right, that he might end up retiring without even throwing a punch. uh, but I mean, of all people that Conor McGregor could come back against, that would be the guy. I mean, he hasn't really been a world beater in the UFC, so I mean, he's kind of and he's got height. Conor's got height on him. He's got reach on him. Um, so I think that's why he wants that fight. But I don't think Chandler's going to wait. So we may see a Nate Diaz come back just for that opportunity. That's another thing that's been going around. It's a trilogy fight. I think both fighters would want that, but yeah, I don't know how that would go either. But I think McGregor is just severely behind the eight ball with this time away from the sport. And then not only that, but his friggin' reputation for partying. And when he does show up to events, like he showed up to one of these fights overseas, and it was a Bellator card in Dublin, and he ends up giving a speech after the fight. And I think like he was in sandals. He showed up at the last possible minute, and then he shows up in sandals, talking about his little broken toe and how he has to come in 100% or not at all. And yeah, I don't see Prime McGregor pulling out of a fight because of a broken toe. I just don't see it. But he's definitely got to come back for at least one more fight. And if he loses, then he might retire. But for his legacy, he has to come back and beat somebody. I think that's in his head. But yeah, it's Aspinall versus Jones. I just don't think that's going to happen until or if he beats Miocic first. But anyway, that's my take on it. I think a lot of us would rather see Aspinall versus Jones, though. I don't know. You probably want to see Miocic versus Jones. he gets some experience.
I mean, I have two. I'm kind of a split personality on that because my heart's with my homie, but my head understands completely that Aspinall is the future, and the fact that Stipe has been on the shelf for more than 3 years now, and
Right.
he is, well, let's see, 42 years old now.
Oh wow, really?
Well, he'll be 40. He'll be 42 next month.
Wow.
So yeah, I can understand the fans being this thing like with Joe Biden. You need 3. You're not up to it now. I was like,
Sleepy Joe.
because
Right. Oh, another story I forgot to mention. Darren Till had a boxing match last weekend that descended into an all-out brawl at the end of it. I don't know if you guys have seen clips of it, but his opponent has decided to go house on everybody. Started throwing real punches after the fight, and boy, it was pretty crazy.
Till is always involved. He's controversy magnet. I mean, street fights. I mean, wherever he's always.
Yeah, I guess there was some punches in the back of the head. That's what started it. He hit his opponent in the back of the head, and then the guy was rolling around in distress, and then he stood up and aggressively charged at Till, and then just everything devolved from there. Both teams came into the ring, and Till got wrestled to the canvas, and it was ultimately called a second round TKO in Till's favor. Uh, so yeah, he just basically took it personally and decided to make it an all-out brawl. But, the fight actually probably wouldn't have gotten the attention it would have until was fully aware of that. He said, you know what? The guy probably did us a favor because look online. The whole world's talking about it, so it's a good thing.
Oh, and
Yeah.
then another thing, Anthony Joshua apparently sent out a tweet to Anton and saying, why don't you try?
No, Dana won't let him.
Answered that, and he said, "Hey, I'm 37 years old. Probably won't have a good career in boxing. So who do you suggest I fight?"
I saw a thing. I saw a video on Facebook recently, which really made me question Poetan's English. He had a signing video where he was signing his UFC contract. And he, in perfect English, said, I'm glad to be fighting in the UFC and to be welcomed into the UFC's family without missing a beat. But every time he gets interviewed after a fight, he needs a friggin' translate. I don't get it. Like,
Well,
is he hiding something?
he has been living here a couple of years
Yeah.
in training with Glover. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe he's just that kind of a mystery, but maybe he just wants to speak in Brazilian to his fans.
Well, maybe.
I'm sure
Yeah.
he's got some reason.
Yeah. So we'll see. But yeah, Jerry actually too was back in the news because now he claims he had a staph infection from a tick bite. And that was giving him some difficulty leading up to the fight. So now he's wanting a third fight. Yeah.
Gonna knock anyone for like livers. I mean, there's one type I guess each day, but the asterisk.
Yeah. Oh, it is what it is. All right. Well, that's about it for breaking news.
That was like my picture with Kurt Angle from last week.
Oh, yeah, we've got to talk about that. When's he coming on the show, Tony? I saw you gave him a clip of Dr. Cox. He looked like he was intently looking at that. And
Yeah, what I did was, ironically, it was because we had a discussion on the show a few months ago, and it was about my senior year at Lock Haven, and the nationals that year, and the one thing I was on you with was the championship fight in our weight class, which was a real tall guy, Air Force. And I said, you were like, he knocked Jordan out in the first round. I said, no, I'm pretty sure it was because I think Jordan just really ran out of gas. And I found my scrapbook and I looked it up. Well, in that scrapbook is a picture of with Kurt Angle when Doc went into the Pennsylvania State game as a wrestling judge. So what I did was I made a copy of it and in the Lock Haven city paper. In the Lock Haven school paper was so an article about Doc going into the Hall of Fame, which was written by me. Made a copy of that as well, and I put it in one of those plastic folders. And I gave it to him. I said, this is from the Lock Haven paper review on Doc. Man, he was a legend. So, I got for 4 years, and I think he just passed away years ago, and we were talking for a minute, and then I said, well, really? I'm like, yeah, but, I was a major at Lock Haven, and, I did a lot of writing for the boxing team as well as being a competitor. And we got to talk a little bit, and he knew one of the wrestlers that was there when I was there, that Kurt Angle. Now, talk about high praise. Kurt Angle, this guy from Lock Haven, by the name of Carrie Cole, was maybe the greatest wrestler the country ever seen.
yeah, I've heard of him. I think I've heard of him.
I knew Lock Haven was a big. Really understand. We can talk about like I don't understand. I was on a road trip with them when we found out that Dave Schultz got murdered by John D. Conn. Because talking to Dave Schultz, they can help the result. Year, one of my roommates, I had a weekend where I wasn't playing. I think flights were down at VMI. They can be on the trip. So one of my roommates goes, hey, man, they got the hey, Ross Haven versus Penn State. You want to go? Free tickets if you're a student. I'm like, yeah, man, I got enough time this weekend. I'm not on the trip, so yeah, let's go. So we got there, and they lined up, all the weight classes, and the one match was Terry Colon versus Penn State. And he was going down and he would double leg take him and take the guy down and he'd, ride him and, whatever. And he'd have him on the ground and he'd have, and she'd get points for how long you'd keep him down, you know. And then he'd get a point. He'd give him a point. He gave him a point. He'd take him right back down and he'd set him again and, whatever. And I said to my buddy, and I said, God, why is he doing that? He goes, well, he's letting him and give up points so he can take him back down and get 2 points and then get points for, riding and, whatever. I said, well, is this guy that he's wrestling not any good? And Gary goes, that's an all-American. Like, good. Being good and great.
Right.
And
Yeah, I think I remember watching a Lock Haven versus VMI match when I was down there. That's the only wrestling match I ever went to down there. I don't remember who did what or who won, but I do remember watching the wrestling team down there.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that Kurt Angle said, he goes, Carey should have won the 2000 Olympics. He really got ripped off, and he did. Carey was against the defending champion from Iran, and he beat him. And the Iranian with some technicality bullshit, and it got overturned, which was just a load of shit, But we were, more and more we were talking about it, and it reminded me when they said the difference between good and great was when Kurt Angle was WWE wrestler. He broke into it around 99, 2000, and then a few years later is when Brock in it. Now, if you look at Kurt Angle, Kurt Angle, and it was 15 from 20, what? 75, jacked beyond all belief. But they were always talking about their amateur backgrounds. You know, Kurt Angle, Olympic gold medalist, now, AA champion, and, time, all these tournaments around the world. But national champion. He's amazing athlete. Well, the one time they were talking about it, and then they finally said, let's do like a amateur showroom. Let's freestyle or whatever they were doing. And Angle demolished them.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, Engel actually was in the movie the Warrior too about MMA. He never actually did MMA himself, but he played an MMA fighter in the movie The Warrior. When I was out in Vegas, I got to see it for free because somehow it wasn't connected to the UFC guys I was going up against. So they let me go to one casino out there where they had a movie theater, and I watched it for free and did a review on it. But yeah, that was kind of a surprise to see him.
When Angle was wrestling around with Lesnar, like, kind of like um an impromptu match, they said like he's having a good Lesnar, and they said once again, difference between very good and great.
Yeah, yeah. Brock was just a basically just a behemoth. He's just so much muscle, and that's what made him more of a WWE star in the first place. It's just his physique. He could also jump around the ring, which was probably more because he played football than because of his
Right.
great wrestling background. But anyway, yeah, that's good. I could probably see if I could find contact information for Kurt online, and then be based on your experience with him, be like, "Hey, did you know that he does a radio show with me? And I saw you in the Warrior." That would be a great guest.
That'd be all.
But we haven't had a wrestler on. Well, actually,
Yeah.
since DDP, really, because I mean we've had wrestling people, but
And that
not
was
actual wrestlers.
10 years ago.
At least, yeah,
Yeah.
crazy. Time flies.
And
Yes.
I'll ready to leave.
Oh, and before I forget, I do have to update on last week's interview we did with Shoni Carter. I did reach out to our buddy over there at Bare Knuckle, guy we interviewed twice, Sean Wheelock, and apparently he does have a relationship with the matchmaker. He knows him pretty well, so I put in Shoni's word. And of course, he knows Shoney because he's a UFC historian, Sean. So he said, "Oh yeah, we'd love to have him do the bare knuckle." So he put in his. I requested Shoney give me his weight, and he said either 205 to start, and then we might cut down to 185 if it works out. So that will be interesting if that happens. I know that Shoney did say in our interview that the last time he tried to fight, they wouldn't give him approval because he'd been inactive for too long. So, barring that same um, situation, I think we might see him at 205 in bare knuckle one of these days. So that will definitely get me watching that if that happens. But the other thing, he's still looking help on. He's on Facebook, so if anybody listening is a family law person, he's trying to get back in touch with his daughter. As the mother is keeping the daughter from visiting him, and you know, I guess she's got custody. But I mean, he gave us the rundown of why there's no reason he shouldn't be allowed to see his daughter. I mean, I don't think he's got a criminal record or anything. So usually that's what stops it. Well, it was a good interview, and it's on both Spreaker and Blog Talk Radio. If anybody wants to listen to it, I got it posted on my my Facebook page. So check that out, George Bergeron on Facebook, and you'll see the link to it. down the page a little bit. So I guess we'll wrap it up on that note, and we'll definitely over these next couple weeks we'll see who else we can get on the show because I liked getting back to the interview situations. It was cool. Shoney was friggin' hilarious too. Hilarious. And he dresses pretty well. Like he's very known for his style. And he would I mean, I don't know if we ever sent him a picture. You were on the last interview we did with him, Tony, and I listened to the part where you told him about your gimmick with dressing up like Apollo Creed. And I don't know if we ever sent him pictures, but I bet you he would get a kick out of that outfit because he's had some pretty crazy ones of his own over the years. Said something about wanting to go back to Egypt in a pink pinstriped suit. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but they call him Mr. International. It's been all over the place. And it was pretty interesting. One more thing about the interview. I asked him at one point how many disciplines did he fight in, and boy, I did not know the extent of how many different types of fighting he has done. Yeah, he gave us the full list. Like, it's just about everything you could think of, he's done it. So that was one of the things he said. If he could find a lawyer, he would give them executive level MMA training, or actually just fighting self-defense training, uh, if he could get some legal help. So that's well worth it considering the experience that guy has. Anyway, that's all for now, and thanks for stopping by. And
All right. All right, guys. Enjoy the fights.
yes, sir.
All right.
Till next
If
week.
I go, I'll send you some photos.
Yeah, definitely. Let me know if you need to try to get a press pass. I might be able to swing it.
All right.
All
Sounds
right.
good, man.
All right. Take
Bye
it easy.
later.